The year was 2387, and the Galactic Council ruled over 17 civilized species across the Milky Way. They had forgotten about humans, those primitive beings who had vanished from known space 3 centuries ago after their homeworld went silent. Captain Rex of the mining vessel Starhawk was conducting routine asteroid surveys in the dead zone of Sector 7 when his scanners picked up something impossible. Massive metallic signatures buried deep within a cluster of drifting rocks, each object larger than a space station. "What are those things?" asked his crew member Tom, staring at the scanner readings. Rex had never seen ships like these. They were angular, brutal in design, covered in thick armor plating that seemed to absorb their scanner beams. Ancient text was carved into their hull's symbols that the ship's computer struggled to translate. The first ship they approached was called the Iron Fist. As their small vessel drew closer, Rex noticed something terrifying. These weren't just ships, they were weapons. Massive cannon barrels jutted from every surface. Launch tubes for missiles lined the hulls like rows of teeth. Point defense turrets covered every blind spot. "Captain," Tom said, his voice shaking. The computer finished translating those markings. "These are human ships." Rex felt his blood run cold. Humans were supposed to be extinct, or at least irrelevant. The Council had classified them as a failed species, too violent, too aggressive, to survive in civilized space. But these ships told a different story. They spoke of a military power that could challenge entire fleets. As they transmitted their findings back to the Council, neither Rex nor Tom noticed the faint energy readings beginning to pulse within the ancient human warships. Deep in their cores, automated systems that had slept for 300 years were slowly coming online. The humans had not died out. They had simply been waiting. Council Admiral Blue of the advanced Klaxon species received Rex's report with disbelief. The Council had spent centuries building their perfect galactic civilization, peaceful, orderly, controlled. They had eliminated warfare, banned weapons research, and created a society where conflicts were resolved through debate and trade agreements. "Impossible," Blue muttered, reviewing the scans. Humans were barely capable of interplanetary travel when they disappeared. But the evidence was undeniable. The ships were real, and they were enormous. Each one dwarfed the Council's largest vessels. Blue ordered a full investigation fleet to Sector 7, commanded by General Mark of the warrior Brutus Species 1 of. The few remaining military leaders in Council space. When Mark's fleet arrived, they found the human ships had moved. The ancient vessels now floated in perfect formation, their weapon systems powered, but not yet active. It was like discovering a sleeping dragon that had just opened one eye. "Attention, unknown vessels," Mark broadcast on all frequencies. "You are in Council space. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came in perfect galactic standard, spoken by a calm human voice. "This is Admiral Kane of the Human Defense Fleet. You are addressing the crew of the battleship Thunder of Earth. We have been monitoring your transmissions for the past 72 hours. Mark felt his confidence waver. The human spoke with the authority of someone who had never doubted their right to be here. "Human?" Mark replied. "Your species abandoned this region centuries ago. These ships are ancient relics." Kane's laugh was cold as space itself. "Ancient? General, these ships were built to last. We didn't abandon anything. We were forced to leave by your Council's expansion, but we promised we would return when the galaxy needed us." "The galaxy doesn't need you," Mark said firmly. "We have peace. We have order." "You have weakness," Kane replied. "And weakness invites predators. We've been watching from the dark spaces between stars. We know about the raider attacks on your outer colonies. We know about the slave ships your peaceful Council can't stop. We know about the growing threats your debate halls can't handle. Mark's blood ran cold. The human was right. For months, the Council had struggled with increasing attacks from unknown forces. Their peaceful methods were failing against enemies who didn't share their values. "What do you want?" Mark asked. "Nothing from you," Kane said. "But there are innocent people being hurt while your council talks. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to fight." The human ships began to move with deadly grace, their massive forms accelerating toward the outer rim where the worst attacks had been reported. Mark watched helplessly as vessels more powerful than anything in council space disappeared into hyperspace. The humans were back, and they were going to war. The pirate base on Kepler Station had never seen anything like it. For months, the ruthless Captain Vex and his crew had raided Council supply ships with impunity. The Council's response was always the same: diplomatic protests and economic sanctions that meant nothing to outlaws. Vex was counting his latest haul of stolen medical supplies when his sensor officer screamed a warning. "Captain, unknown ship dropping out of hyperspace." On the main screen, a nightmare appeared. The human battleship Thunder of Earth emerged from the void like a metallic mountain. Its hull was scarred from centuries of battles, its weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. "What the hell is that thing?" Vex snarled. His tactical officer was frantically running scans. It's massive, Captain. 3 times the size of our entire base. Armor plating is beyond anything in our databases. And the weapons? The pirate's voice trailed off as the scanning results appeared. The human ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. A transmission came through, broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention pirates of Kepler Station. This is Admiral Kane of the Human Defense Fleet. You have been raiding medical supplies destined for refugee colonies. Children are dying because of your actions." Vex laughed nervously. "Human Defense Fleet? Never heard of you. This is our territory now. Leave or we'll blow you apart." Kane's response was immediate and terrifying. "You have 10 seconds to release all prisoners and surrender your weapons. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why humans were once feared across the galaxy. Go to hell." Vex shouted back. The human ship fired a single shot. A beam of pure energy lanced out from its main cannon and struck the station's shield generator. The massive defensive system that had protected Kepler Station for years simply vanished, vaporized in an instant. Vex's crew stared in horror. Their shields hadn't been penetrated or overloaded. They had been completely destroyed by a single shot from a single weapon. "Impossible," Vex whispered. "That was a warning shot," Kane's voice continued calmly. "Human weapons were designed to fight wars you cannot imagine. We spent centuries perfecting the art of destruction while your species were learning to build. Surrender now, or face the full night of human military engineering." The pirate bases. Weapons opened fire in desperation, throwing everything they had at the human ship. Plasma bolts, fusion missiles, and particle beams struck the Thunder of Earth's hull and simply disappeared, absorbed by armor that had been forged in the fires of ancient wars. In response, the human ship's point defense systems activated. Hundreds of small turrets tracked and destroyed every incoming projectile with casual precision. It was like watching a master swordsman deal with children throwing stones. "Last chance," Kane announced. Vex looked around at his terrified crew and made the only choice that would keep them alive. "We surrender. We surrender." 20 minutes later, Council rescue ships arrived to find Kepler Station intact but powerless. The pirates were secured in holding cells, and stolen supplies were being organized for return to refugee camps. Of the human ship, there was no sign except for a brief message transmitted to the Council fleet. "The prisoners are yours to judge according to your laws. The innocent people they endangered are now safe. This is what justice looks like when backed by strength. Admiral Kane, Human Defense Fleet." As news of the incident spread through Council space, a single question echoed through every species. If one human ship could do this, what would happen when the rest of their fleet revealed itself? The galaxy was about to find out that humans had not spent 3 centuries hiding. They had spent 3 centuries preparing. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in recorded history. Representatives from all 17 species gathered in the great chamber on Central Station, their voices raised in heated debate about the human situation. They destroyed Kepler Station's defenses with a single shot, shouted Counselor Gray of the Nexus Republic. These humans are too dangerous to ignore. They saved innocent lives, countered Ambassador White of the Trade Union. The pirates had been operating for months while we debated sanctions. Admiral Blue stood at the center podium, his blue skin pale with stress. The question isn't whether their actions were justified. The question is what we do about a military force we can't match. As if summoned by their discussion, the chamber's communication system activated. Admiral Kane's image appeared on the main screen, a human male with steel-gray eyes and graying hair, wearing a simple military uniform. "Honorable Counselors," Kane said with formal politeness, "I request permission to address this assembly." "You have no authority here," Admiral Blue replied stiffly. "Humans are not members of the Galactic Council." "No," Kane agreed. "We never applied for membership. But we've been protecting this galaxy longer than most of your species have had spaceflight." With those words, Kane transmitted a data package that filled the chamber's screens with impossible images. Hundreds of human warships emerged from hyperspace around Central Station itself, their massive forms surrounding the Council's seat of power. The chamber erupted in panic. These weren't just ships, they were floating fortresses. The smallest human vessel was larger than the Council's flagship. The largest were mobile battle stations that could house entire fleets. "How?" Admiral Blue whispered. 300 years ago, we didn't disappear, Kane explained calmly. We were forced to leave by Council expansion policies that labeled us too aggressive for civilized space. So we went to the dark zones, the empty regions between star systems that you considered worthless. Images flashed on the screen showing massive construction facilities hidden in deep space, asteroid mining operations that had built these incredible ships, and training facilities where human warriors had perfected their deadly arts. While your species focused on trade and diplomacy, we focused on what humans do best. We prepared for war. We knew that someday the galaxy would need us again. "What do you want?" demanded Counselor Gray. "Nothing you're not already failing to provide," Kane replied. "Peace, security, protection for the innocent. But we'll do it our way, with strength, not words." The human admiral gestured, and tactical displays showed the current state of the galaxy. Pirate raids, slave traders, and rogue military forces operating in dozens of systems. All areas where the Council's diplomatic approach had failed to protect civilians. "Your peaceful methods work well with civilized beings," Kane continued. "But the galaxy contains species that only understand force. We've spent 3 centuries becoming very good at speaking their language. You're threatening us," Admiral Blue accused. "No," Kane said quietly. "We're offering to handle the problems you can't solve. The pirates who laugh at your sanctions. The slavers who ignore your protests. The raiders who attack while you're still scheduling meetings to discuss their previous attacks." A new voice joined the transmission, Captain Rex, from the mining ship that had first discovered the human vessels. "Admiral Kane," Rex said nervously, "what happens to the Council's authority?" Kane's expression softened slightly. "The Council will continue to govern as it always has. We have no interest in politics or trade disputes. But when innocent people are threatened by those who prey on the weak, humanity will respond." "And if we order you to leave?" asked Admiral Blue. "Then we'll leave," Kane replied. And when the next group of raiders attacks your medical transports, or the next slaver ring kidnaps your colonists, you can handle it with diplomatic notes and economic sanctions. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had become dependent on methods that only worked against civilized opponents. The human fleet represented a solution to problems they couldn't solve, but at the cost of acknowledging their own limitations. "We need time to discuss this," Admiral Blue finally said. "Of course," Kane agreed. "But while you're discussing, people are dying. Every hour you debate is another hour that predators operate freely." The human ships began to move, their massive forms disappearing back into hyperspace as suddenly as they had appeared. "We'll be out there," Kane's final message echoed through the chamber. Watching, waiting, ready to do what must be done. The age of human warriors had returned to the galaxy. 6 months after the human fleet's revelation. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Council still governed, still mediated disputes, still maintained their peaceful civilization. But in the dark spaces between systems, human warships patrolled like silent guardians. Captain Rex, now promoted to head of mining operations for Sector 7, received regular reports about the changes. Pirate attacks had dropped by 90%. Slave trading routes had been disrupted so thoroughly that most criminal organizations had abandoned the practice entirely. Raiders who had once operated with impunity now fled at the first sign of human ships. The methods were simple and effective. When diplomatic solutions failed, the humans provided alternatives. The pirate fleet that had terrorized the Outer Rim learned this lesson when they ignored Council warnings about attacking refugee ships. Admiral Kane's response was swift. 3 human destroyers appeared and gave the pirates exactly 60 seconds to surrender. When they refused, the human ships demonstrated why their species had once been feared. The pirate flagship was cut in half by a single cannon shot. The remaining vessels surrendered immediately, but it wasn't just about destruction. The humans had also become unexpected peacekeepers. When two minor species began fighting over mining rights, traditional council mediation had failed for months. Admiral Kane arrived with a single battleship and a simple proposal: continue fighting and lose access to the disputed system entirely, or accept arbitration and resume profitable mining operations. The war ended in 3 days. Council records showed remarkable statistics. Civilian casualties from criminal activity had dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to pirate activity were reopening. Refugee camps that had lived in fear now reported feeling secure. The humans have become the galaxy's immune system, Admiral Blue reported to the Council. They target threats that our peaceful methods cannot handle. But the most surprising development was how the humans conducted themselves. They didn't conquer territory or demand tribute. They didn't interfere in legitimate government operations or trade disputes. They simply eliminated threats and disappeared back into deep space. "It's like having guardian angels," Captain Rex told his crew. Deadly, terrifying guardian angels with planet-killing weapons. The arrangement wasn't without controversy. Some council members argued that relying on human military might undermine their commitment to peaceful solutions. Others worried about what would happen if humanity ever decided to turn their weapons against the Council itself. Admiral Kane addressed these concerns during his final official transmission to the Council. "We understand your fears," he said. His image broadcast to every Council world. "You've built something beautiful here, a civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. We have no desire to destroy that. But every civilization needs those willing to stand guard against the darkness. For 3 centuries, we've prepared for this role. We've trained our warriors, built our ships, and hardened our hearts for the difficult choices that peaceful beings cannot make." Kane paused, looking directly at the camera with those steel-gray eyes that had become famous across the galaxy. "We are not your rulers. We are not your conquerors. We are your weapons, aimed at those who would harm the innocent. When diplomacy fails, when economic pressure is useless, when criminal organizations laugh at your laws, that's when you need us. And we will always be there." The transmission ended, but its impact lasted. The human fleet continued its silent patrol, an invisible shield protecting a galaxy that had forgotten how to protect itself. Years passed. New species joined the Council, attracted by the unprecedented safety and stability. Trade flourished. Art and science advanced. The peaceful civilization that the Council had dreamed of was finally possible, protected by warriors who asked for nothing in return except the right to serve. Captain Rex, now an old man, sometimes watched the stars and wondered about the human. Ships moving silently through the void. He had been there when they awakened, had witnessed the return of a species that the galaxy had written off as primitive and violent. But the humans had proven something important. True civilization wasn't about abandoning the capacity for violence. It was about having that capacity and choosing when to use it wisely. The galaxy was safer, more prosperous, and more peaceful than it had ever been. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, human warships continued their eternal watch, ready to wake the thunder of war if anyone threatened the peace they had sworn to protect. The ancient human fleet had awakened, and the galaxy was finally ready for the protection only warriors could provide.